Okay, folks, I've got a very good Bible lesson for you this afternoon. And this has to do with Genesis chapter 30. And this has to do with the handmaiden's tale, where Rachel could not have any children, and so Jacob bore the children of Israel, or the sons of Israel. He had them through her handmaidens. And so, anyway, read along with me. Chapter 30, I'm going to go with this New King James Version. I don't want to do that, folks, but you seem to understand it better, so I'm at least going to give that much, no more. Now, when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she was barren, in other words, Rachel envied her sister and said to Jacob, "Give me children or else I die." And Jacob's anger was aroused against Rachel, and he said, "Am I in the place of God who has withheld from the fruit of the womb?" So she said, "Here is my handmaiden Bella. Okay, go into her, and she will bear you children on my knees, that I also may have children by her." Then she gave him Bala, her maid, as wife. And Jacob went into her, and Bala conceived and bore Jacob a son. And Rachel said, "God has judged my case, and he has also heard my voice and given me a son." Therefore she called his name Dan, which is one of the tribes of Israel. And Rachel's maid Bela conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, "With great wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister, and indeed I have prevailed." So she called his name Naphtali, which is also one of the fathers of the children of the tribes of Israel. When Leah saw that she had stopped bearing, she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave her to Jacob as a wife. And Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Then Leah said, "A troop comes." So she called his name Gad. And Leah's name Zilpah bore Jacob a second son, and Leah said, "I am happy, for the daughters will come, called me blessed." So she called his name Asher. These are all the founders of the tribes of Israel here we're talking about, folks, right here. These are the tribes, okay? Now Reuben went into the days of wheat harvest and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." And she said to her, Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of the son's matrix." But she said to her, "It is a small matter you have taken away my husband. Would you take away my son's mandrakes as well?" And Rachel said, "Therefore, he will lie with you tonight for your son's mandrakes." Then Jacob came out of the field of the evening. Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must come in to me, and I have surely hired you with my son's mandrakes." And he lay with her that night. And God listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. Leah said, "God has given me my wages because I have given my maid to my husband." So she called his name Issachar. Okay? Then Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. And Leah said, "God has endowed me with a good endowment. Now my husband will dwell with me because I have bore him six sons." So she called his name Zebulun, which is also one of the fathers of the tribe of Israel. You can see where this is headed, folks. These are the tribes of Israel right here that you're seeing manifest in front of your eyes here with these handmaidens, okay? Afterwards she bore a daughter and called her name Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb, and she conceived and bore a son. And God had said, "Taken away my reproach." So she called his name Joseph, and said, "The Lord shall add to me another son." And it came to pass when Rachel was born Joseph, that Jacob said to Laban, "Send me away, that I may go on my own place and go to my country. Give my wives and my children to whom I have served you, and let me go, and you my servant, which I have done for you." Then Laban said to him, "Please, stay, if I have found favor in your eyes, for I have learned my experience that the Lord has blessed me for your sake. Then he said, Name your wages, and I will give it. So Jacob said to him, You know I have served you, and know your livestock has been with me. For what you had before I came was little, and it was increased to a great amount. The Lord has blessed you since my coming, and now when shall I provide for my own house? So he said, What shall I give you? And Jacob said, You shall not give me anything. If you will do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep your flocks. Let me pass through all your flocks today. Now, folks, when I read you this, I want you to keep in mind that the passage that you are ready to hear here is a metaphor. The goats are the evil of the devil. The sheep are the children of Israel. And the spots are the Egyptian blood lineage that's mixed in from these girls into the Jewish blood lineage, okay? So when you hear this, that's what I want you to keep in mind. This is metaphorical, okay? It's metaphorical. So, again, Jacob said, You shall not give me anything. You will do this thing for me. I will again feed and keep your flocks. Let me pass through all your flocks today, remove them of the speckled and spotted sheep, and all the brown ones among the lambs, and the spotted and speckled among the goats. And there shall be my wages, so my righteousness will answer for me in the time to come, when the subject of my wages comes before you. Even one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and brown among the lambs will be considered stolen, if it is with me. And Laban said, Oh, that were according to your word. So he removed the male goats that were speckled and spotted. Now those male goats is actually just like the male goats that would be evil, okay? They're goats, but it's these children that he's talking about that he's had with these handmaidens, guys. Okay? And these shall be my wages, so my righteousness will answer me in the time to come, when the subject of my wages is before you. Every one that is speckled and spotted among the goats, and brown among the lambs, will be considered stolen, if it is in me. And Laban said, Oh, that were according to your word. So he removed that day the male goats that were speckled and spotted, all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, okay, every one that had some white in it, and all the brown ones among the lambs, and gave them into the hand of his sons. Then he put 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flock. Now Jacob took for himself rods of green poplar, and from the almond of the chestnut trees, peeled white strips of them, and exposed the white which was in the rods, and the rods which had peeled. What he's trying to say there is, folks, he's trying to discern with these rods. He's actually talking about these children that he can't get separated in the sheep and the goats, which are actually the children that he's had with these handmaidens. And he's trying to strip the whole situation down and discern, who have I got in front of me? Okay? That's what he's getting at. It's a metaphor. And the rods which he had peeled he set before the flocks of the gutters, in the water troughs where the flocks came to drink, so that they should conceive when they came to drink. So the flocks conceived before the rods, and the flocks brought forth streaked, speckled, and spotted. In other words, even after he had separated the Egyptian from the Jewish, when they bred back again, these sons of Israel and the children of Israel, the Egyptian spots came back again into his flock. It's metaphorical, folks. Okay? Then Jacob separated the lambs and made the flocks face the streaking, and all the brown in the flock of Laban. But he put his own flock by themselves, and did not put them with Laban's flock. And it came to pass, whenever the stronger livestock conceived, that Jacob placed the rods before his eyes, and the livestock in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. But when the flocks were feeble, but he put them in, so the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. What it all boils down to is, people, it's blood lineages here is what we're talking about. He's trying to separate the Egyptian blood lineage from the Jewish blood lineage. He's trying to give the children that he has that has more Egyptian in them back to Laban, which is the father of these handmaidens. And he's trying to take the children of Israel with him, but he cannot separate them. And some of them are good and some of them are bad. Some of them are goats and some of them are sheep. Thus the man became exceedingly prosperous, and had large flocks, female and male servants, and camels and donkeys. Now Jacob heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob has taken away all that was our father's. In other words, all their father's blood lineage. And from that was our father's, he had acquired all this wealth. And Jacob saw the countenance of Laban, and indeed it was more favorable toward him as before. Talking about children. Then the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your family, and I will be with you. Now, basically, folks, what I just told you there, it's all metaphorical. The goats are the evil ones. The sheep are the good ones. The spotted that he's trying to separate out is the Egyptian blood lineage that came from the handmaidens, because they were Egyptian and he was Jewish. Okay? But when he tried to separate them, the spots appeared again, which means he couldn't get the Egyptian blood out of the Jewish. Okay? It just kept going. And then when he tried to peel back the rods to even try to figure out who's Jewish and who's Egyptian to give them back to Laban, the children, he still couldn't do it. They still appeared. And that Egyptian blood lineage runs congruent with the Jewish blood lineage today, folks. That's how come you have a lot of these kings and queens who claims that they are Jewish, and they have the tribe of Judah on the front of the shield of their coat of arms, and yet they have an Egyptian blood lineage crown behind them. It's Egyptian and it's Jewish. And it's hard to distinguish the difference between the pharaohs and the Jewish people. It's hard to distinguish the ones between Revelation 2:9 that says that they are Jews but are not but do lie. It's hard to distinguish those that they're supposed to be Jew but they lie. Now, after telling you this metaphor, I'm going to tell you something that's going to astound you people that you've not heard anything of this from anywhere else. And it not only has to do with this story, but it also has to do with the story of Cain, which Cain was actually the blood lineage of the devil. And the biting of the apple, that was all metaphorical too. That was Satan tempting Eve, but not with an apple. You get what I'm saying? And so, I'm going to tell you something now that you have never heard from anyone else. So cleverly, between my story I just told you and the story of Cain and the tempting of Eve, the book of Genesis is actually the book of the genes of Isis of Egypt. Can't make it up, folks. Now you know. Never heard that anywhere, did you? Well, you have now. The book of Genesis is the book of the genes of Isis. Thank you for watching my video.